I've had some very, very annoying 24 hours, and I have some bad news. So get ready for a lot of nagging. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
Alright, so first off, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at Super Dario World. Also follow my Facebook page, Super Dario World. I update everything there. So, as you may have noticed, I did not post a podcast or video yesterday. It's because, for some reason, for the past almost 24 hours, technology just seems to not be working around me. I have a black cloud that's been following me, and it's very annoying, and I'm very upset about it. And I am trying to not lose my shit. Now, also, that came on top of some kind of bad news, or at least something that was a real bummer to me, but I'll wait for that. Let me just tell you the fun stuff that I've been dealing with for the last 24 hours. So yesterday I did my podcast, right? Did everything normal. It was the Val Kilmer one, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Recorded it. Bada beam, bada boom. Job's done, right? Now the only thing left is just to load it and let that do its thing. Let the internet do its thing. It would not load. For the life of me, I could not figure out why it wouldn't load. I tried logging out of the website that I used, logging back in, still wasn't working. Then I thought maybe I exported the file wrong, so I did it again. Still wasn't working. So then I was like, maybe it's the computer, because the internet's still working, because I was watching a YouTube video. And I entered the website that I needed to enter. So I thought that was really weird. So I restarted the computer. Nothing. I restarted the modem. Nothing. For some reason, this wasn't working. And I decided, all right, you know what? Maybe it's just the website. The website's having issues, so I'll just give it a little bit. So I gave it a little bit. Tried again. Nothing. Gave it another little bit. Nothing. And here's the point where I kind of start losing my shit. So I try very hard to be patient with a lot of things, mostly because I am a hothead with a lot of things. And it's with really small, really ridiculous things that make me lose my shit. And it's small things like these. Big things, I keep my cool. I'm level-headed. But when it's a little thing like this that is pretty much absolutely out of my control, or that I have tried to find multiple answers to around, it's usually when there's a small obstacle in front of me that makes me lose my shit. Big obstacles I can deal with. No problem, no issue. I'll just, power through, put your head down. Little by little, you'll take it on. You'll bring down that obstacle. But when it's a little bump in the road that just keeps fucking you up, it really upsets me. It really, really upsets me. So I was mad. And when you get mad, you kind of want to hit things. The problem is that every single thing here is mine. So I didn't want to hit my shit just because something else wasn't working. And so I took a deep breath and I was like, all right, one more time. And also, this was upsetting me because I set goals for myself every day. Yesterday, it was a really busy day. It was an extra busy day for me. And up till that point, I was maybe a little bit late, but I was on par with every single goal that I had for that day, which is a good day for me, because if I don't set goals for me, I ain't gonna do shit. I'm really good at doing nothing. So I need to set up goals, and I talked about this earlier in the podcast about, not being your own tyrant and learning how to let certain things go. Just do the important things, but it's okay to let other things go. Well, the issue here is that I couldn't let it go because I had fucking done it, and the stupid thing wasn't letting me finish it. So it was very upsetting to me until eventually I decided, you know what? All right, this is weird. I've restarted the computer several times, restarted the website several times. I restarted the modem several times. Let's just see what the hell is going on. So I decided to do a speed test on my internet. And I have pretty good internet because we got a pretty good deal on really good internet. And the download was fine. Download speed was fine. But the upload speed was 0. And I was like, son of a bitch. What the fuck? And we're paying for better upload speed. So I figured, you know what? All right, at least I found the problem. And I'll just fuck it. I'll leave it an hour and see what's up later on. Checked it an hour later, still no upload speed. I was like, fuck it, all right, I'll just do it. I'll do it tomorrow. So I waited and I loaded the Val Kilmer podcast for today. I loaded it today earlier in the morning. And that was another huge pain in my ass. But I'll get to that. So this morning at the radio station, for those of you who don't know, I work at a radio station called Rock 105.3. Right now, the show that I work for is called The Show, Morning Show, and the crew, which are, the cast members of the show, they are recording live on location. Well, actually, they're broadcasting live on location. And so that means that they are not in the studio. They are at another location, and and they send the signal from that location to the station, and then the station broadcasts that signal out to the radio, so that everybody else can hear it. The person who's running stuff at the radio station is me. So I'm running all the equipment over there. I'm running the huge soundboard. I'm running everything. And here's the setup at the radio station. You get there, you got this gigantic kind of like space-looking equipment. It's a gigantic soundboard that it looks pretty intimidating, but once you figure it out, it's actually pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's just a lot, and you got to do it all at once, but, practice, whatever. On your left, you have a computer, which, you have two screens for a computer, and that computer runs the software that handles everything for the radio station. Basically, what song's coming next, what commercial, the on-air pause, stuff like that. And also that also has like all the songs that are in the system, everything is there. Radio station stuff, on-air stuff, is in that computer to the left. To the right, we have another computer, which basically runs everything else. It doesn't really run stuff on air unless you want to put it on the air, but you get basically all your work done that has nothing to do with the on-air stuff, you get there. So let's say, for example, you're writing an article to load to the website. You're editing out the podcast. You are editing out a picture. You are researching information. You're answering an email. You're opening up YouTube to find a clip that you have to get the sound for another thing. Everything else, the other computers, right? So to the right is everything else. To the left is everything at the station. Today, I arrived at the station, and I noticed, also I need to clarify this. The computer to the left has a wired mouse and a wired keyboard, which is great. I prefer wires. I'm a wire guy. The computer to the right has a wireless mouse and a wireless keyboard, meaning they require batteries. So, as I'm arriving to the station, I'm logging into one computer, I'm logging into the other, and I noticed that the keyboard and the mouse are a bit finicky, on the right computer. Yeah, they both have their independent keyboard and mouse, by the way. And so I noticed they're a little bit finicky, and I figured, it's probably because the batteries are running out, right? Normal stuff. Happens all the time. Batteries run out in wireless shit. It happens. So I set out to try to find a solution to this, and I'm there at about 5 a.m., so I got about an hour before the show starts, and I, start wandering around the building, see if I can find a solution to my problem. I go to check out the engineering area, and the room where all the batteries are locked up, so I need to wait for an engineer to get there. I was like, all right, fine, I got an hour for an engineer to show up. Engineers usually solve all our equipment problems. And I started wandering around the building, all the backup area, I had an hour, so I was wandering around a lot and trying to find solutions. I was trying to find maybe an extra wired keyboard, maybe an extra mouse, something. Nada. And I also couldn't find batteries anywhere. So I go back to the station, and I'm like, all right, what can I do? I could take the mouse and the keyboard from another computer. That's an option. However, whenever I do something like this, because I've done stuff like this in the past, because I'm a problem solver, people tend to get mad at me. Because if I don't know if you know this, kind of the people who are quote unquote the talent and the engineers, they're both kind of finicky about their shit, and they don't like you touching their stuff, and they don't like you messing with stuff. Some of them because they might be a little bit OCD. The other ones because they think you're an idiot who's going to fuck it up. Now, I guess they could both be right in a way, but all right, the problem is that I learned my lesson, okay? I learned my lesson. Don't touch other people's shit. Just basically wait. how long? I mean, this is a radio station, right? We have to have at least one engineer come in eventually because otherwise things aren't going to function. What if something breaks down? We need somebody there, right? And so I decided, the mouse and the keyboard are still working. We're fine. So 6 a.m. hits. We get back on the air. And for one reason or another, the show starts talking about the movie A Star is Born. And for those of you who don't know, the song Shallow is kind of a big deal in that movie. Sang by Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. So, and by the way, I know you're not supposed to say Gaga, whatever, I don't care. So, to me, that is a cue that I should play the song from the movie, because that's what they're talking about. You put it in the background very lightly. It's like, in the shallow, whatever. And so I grabbed the mouse to the computer to the right, because I was going to go to YouTube, because I prefer running things from the computer to the right, from YouTube, than from the system, which would be the computer to the left. Because for some really bizarre reason, you can't pause stuff in the computer left. You can play it or stop it. There's no middle ground. So off of YouTube has always been better to me. So I grab the mouse to the right, I go to YouTube, I click on the search bar, I start typing, and nothing happens. So it's like, fuck, this thing died on me. The keyboard died on me right here, right now. What can I do? So I did what you naturally do. You kind of hit it a little bit, see if that works. Still wasn't working. I couldn't type anything down. And by this point, it's been, let's say, 10, 15 seconds they've been talking about this, which is an eternity in radio, by the way. And so that's when Eddie on the air gives me this thing like, oh, I wish Dario would have gotten the hint, and this is where you play the song. So I decided, right, fuck YouTube. I go to the left, and I go to the system computer, and I click on music. See if maybe we have it on the system. I don't even know if we have it on the system, but I click to see if we have it on the system. And the songs start loading. This takes about a minute. It takes about a minute for all the songs to load because we have a lot of fucking songs in the system. And so in the meantime, it's like, let's see if maybe I can get something to work over here. Maybe I can get enough words in so that I can copy, copy paste letter by letter and put it on YouTube. And so that's what I started doing. I started doing shallow. Like I find an S and I'm trying to copy paste it in there. After I got SH, because I remember, I think at some point we had I think there was a song by Bush, so I got the SH, and I copied it, pasted it in there, and that's when the mouse decided to stop working. So basically, the other computer is pretty much useless for me now, and I started running everything off the system. Fortunately, we did have the song. Everything's okay. Everything's cool. It took me a lot longer than I expected, and I took a little heat from it, but whatever. It's fine. It was funny. It's like, Dario fucked up again. Classic Dario. He always forgets to play things in the background. Doesn't matter. It's fine. So we hit a break, right? And I go to the back, and because I got a few minutes before we're back on the air to see if, the engineer should be here now because this is when we're all on the air. Nobody. And I start looking around again, see if maybe there's a keyboard somewhere. Maybe there's a mouse somewhere. And fortunately, I found a mouse. I found like a lonely, abandoned mouse in a corner somewhere. And I was like, please work. So I took the mouse and I run back to the studio. I plug it in. It works. All right, I got a mouse at least. So this computer is not totally useless. I can at least click stuff and it'll play. The next break, I go to the back, check if there's an engineer again. Nobody. So at this point, I'm starting to get kind of annoyed because I'm falling behind a lot of stuff I have to do. Because I like pre-doing stuff, because if not at the end of the show, everything is gonna fall down on me. Plus, I'm supposed to be taking notes because we're supposed to send a highlight. Well, I'm supposed to write a highlights email, basically a summary of everything that happened to the show, so that people in the building can know what's going on. And I am not happy with the way things are going because I am limited in how I can work. Fortunately, here's a creative solution. There's another computer inside the studio. Now it's uncomfortable, it's out of the way, but I decided, you know what? It's better than nothing, right? So I go over to the other computer, turn it on, and that's when I get the message that, we're updating your computer. Which, fuck. All right. Fine. It's an update. It's necessary. It's cool. It's fine. That update took, let's say, about 12 minutes, which is not that bad. It was another break. Then when I go into the computer, I log in. It takes its sweet time to ramp up, but it did. And I open up Chrome. I'm trying to go into my Gmail because that's where I have all my documents and my Google Drive. And that's when Chrome freezes. So I'm like, fuck. All right. I open up the taskbar, close it up, open it up again, and fuck. It froze again. And at this point, I am fucking seeing red. I've been stomping around that studio like you have no idea because I'm losing my shit. I'm starting to lose my shit. I'm like, what the fuck? Got a piece of shit building, doesn't have a fucking engineer. Why can't I find 2 fucking batteries around? So I'm starting to kind of lose it. And so I decided, you know what? Fuck everything. I'm just going to steal a keyboard from another computer. Mainly this one that's a piece of shit because it's not working. I start following the cable around, the back of the tower and everything. Turns out that thing's actually plugged into a whole bunch of other stuff, and it's basically like an orgy of cables that I'm like, somebody's going to get really pissed off at me if I unplug the wrong thing because I might be fucking up the whole system. And most importantly, I'm going to be fucking up myself because I'm the one that has to use this right now. And it'll be my fault. And to make things worse, we were about to have a call-in segment. Now, what is a call-in segment? That is a segment where it's specifically we request calls from P1, so we get people calling in. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a big deal. It means that I have to be there the entire commercial break because I'm taking calls and I'm getting people on hold and telling them, please do not cuss on the air and stuff like that. But it also means that since they're away at the quarantine studios, I need to communicate to them who is on the line so they can just say, oh, P1 Charlie Brown or whatever. Now, the way that we've been doing this when they're in quarantine studios is on Google Drive. I made a sheet, on the Excel equivalent at Google Drive, and they can see it updated live. However, I cannot type on this thing. I cannot write anything down on that stupid computer because I don't have a fucking keyboard. So, fortunately, I'm quick on my feet, and I downloaded Google Sheets on my phone, and I basically started typing down the P1's information on my phone, which is highly inconvenient, which is very difficult because it means that I have to be on the phone, typing stuff down while I'm talking to people on the phone, while I am trying to communicate to the people down to the show on the line what the hell is happening while I'm trying to run things at the station. I only have so many hands, and it's, let's just say, inconvenient to say the least, but we get it done, and it goes off without a fucking hitch, and I am losing my fucking shit because it's ridiculous that I had to go fucking through that. All right? It's already complicated enough to run things when they're not there, taking calls when they're not there, and also I have to deal with all this stupid bullshit just because I can't find 2 fucking batteries. I don't have access to 2 fucking batteries in $1 million fucking radio station. Not good. And you know what I said earlier about when you're upset and when you're really by little things get me really, really upset? Well, you know what I said about me wanting to hit things? Well, nothing in that station is mine. So everything looks very, very tempting to just grab and throw out the fucking window. That mouse, that keyboard, they were so close to just going out the fucking door. Well, actually, they wouldn't have gone out the window because it's soundproof and so the windows are pretty thick. But I would have felt so much better watching that piece of shit crash. So, at that point, I decided to go one more time to see if there was an engineer there. By the way, at this point, I'd already put in a trouble ticket because they tell you you're supposed to put in a trouble ticket for stuff, and I felt completely ridiculous putting in a trouble ticket for 2 AA batteries or a wired keyboard. But whatever, I did it. It's fine. There's a paper trail, okay? There's a paper trail. So I decided, you know what? Fuck them. There's nobody here. I went to the back. There's nobody there yet. And so I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to steal a keyboard from another studio. So I went into Emily's studio. I unplugged what I hoped was the right thing. Turns out it was the right thing. Do I know how to plug it back in? Not really, because I didn't leave a marker or anything. I just unplugged it and unplugged something else, and I just walked out of there. I was like, fuck it, I need this. And who knows when they'll be back. And when she comes back, then she can deal with the engineers, because fuck them. So I got my keyboard, plugged it in. The rest of the show, I want to say it went fine, but the truth is that it wasn't, because I was in a rush. I was trying to finish everything off because I was late on everything. I hadn't answered a whole bunch of emails. I hadn't taken any notes. I hadn't started any articles. I hadn't edited anything on the podcast. I hadn't done nothing. I also had to pull a song for new releases. I had to do a whole bunch of shit, and I had done nothing. And I mean nothing, just because I had no real way of doing it. Well, no, I guess I could have just used my mouse and copy paste the different words from the alphabet, but that would have been hugely inconvenient. And actually, I think it would have done more harm than good. But anyway, that's it's neither here nor there. Point is, got it done. At that point, I decided to check my email, and I got some pretty bad news. And I mean, I guess it's not really bad news. It's bad news for me. Sad news maybe for you guys, but got an email from the police officer that I've been interviewing for the last few days, and basically he's backing off from the project. Now, I can't say I'm upset about it, because I perfectly understand his reasons. It's just, it sucks because we already had so much done. Like we were progressing pretty well, but I understand his reasoning. And let me just open up the email here so I can tell you. And like I said, I completely understand his reasoning. And it's mainly because it's something that I kind of brought up while we were talking. And by the way, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I was supposed to be interviewing a retired police detective who was a part of a really big operation here in California. And well, basically we recorded the very first what would have been the first episode, and where he laid down the history of gangs in California before we actually got into his story, which we were supposed to get into today. But well, I'll just read you the relevant part here, because it's kind of a long email because we're friends and he felt bad about it. But here's pretty much the important part. The problem is simply one of security. After consulting with members of the California Department of Corrections Special Services Unit, as well as a couple of other gang cops whom I've worked with on our operation, the nagging feeling that I've developed morphed into the obvious. By putting myself out front street, I'm poking a grizzly bear. I was forgetting the rule that warns one, let sleeping dogs lie. Now, he says a bunch of other stuff, but basically, and I can't fault him for this, because the people that he had to deal with are truly not nice, horrible, terrible people. And he was out. I mean, let me correct that. He is out, and he walked away unscathed. His family's unscathed. Everything's fine. But by doing this, maybe, who knows how many people would have listened to this, but if the wrong person would have heard this, it would have put him front and center, because the story would have been told in from his perspective. So it's like, oh yeah, though, let's say that the gang culture is a lot about respect, and they could have felt disrespected, and that's kind of the question that I asked them about. Like, oh, well, were you ever worried that they might come after you because of what you did? And he was like, no, I mean, because the way that we did it was respectful, and they knew that I was doing my job. They were doing their job. Their job is to try to not get caught by me and by the cops, but it was never, you always do it in a respectful way. You're not like, oh, you piece of shit, I caught you, you piece of garbage or something. But the way that we would have done the podcast and him just staring on the story, it would have sounded a lot. But since it would have been from his perspective, everything would have been from his perspective, there is a chance that it would have been taken as him kind of like bragging or something. And, again, the people from this world, they could have been like, oh, well, if we take this dude out, we'll win points, which is the way that world works. You take out let's say a prominent fixture and something, you gain street cred. So I get it, I understand it. It just sucks. It sucks. I mean, I don't fault him for it. I probably would have done the same thing. I've mentioned this several times before. I don't know if in the podcast, but in regular life, that the main reason why I've never considered being a criminal is because I really like sleeping. And there's nothing better than a good night's sleep. And if you're a criminal, you don't really get to sleep comfortably. You always have to keep an eye open. You have to worry about cops. You have to worry about even your friends, enemies. And so to me, it's never been worth it. In this situation right now, he can sleep comfortably. And like he said, let sleeping dogs lie. But it sucks for me, and it puts me in kind of a moral dilemma. The big dilemma here is that, well, I do have an hour of recording while he explains the history of the gangs of California, which are it's a pretty interesting history, and I could just maybe delete the parts where his names are mentioned, or delete a whole bunch of stuff that just leaves the history there. Would just the thing is that it would be his voice, and so that puts me in the moral dilemma of what do I want to do? And I know what you're thinking, Dario. The easy solution here is, why don't you just ask him? Well, it's because if I ask him, he might say no. If I don't ask him, well, then I can do whatever the hell I want. I could just, delete the things that I consider prominent, because I said he's my friend, or at least I consider him my friend. But it's such good content that it hurts for me to just be like, well, I guess I'll delete this. Decisions. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Honestly, I don't know. I'm just bummed. I'm bummed. I'm tired. Because I did spend a lot of time editing that out, doing research again, stuff like that, getting things prepped. I was trying to do a new open for it. I actually enlisted my kid brother to do a song. I'm pretty sure he hasn't done anything for it yet. I'm trying to do a logo for it. And now it's out the window. It's done. It's boring. So not a good 24 hours for me. I gotta tell you, I'm pretty annoyed. Fortunately, I think the computers are working fine now, and I checked my internet and it's fine. Otherwise, I would have just broken shit. But yeah, it sucks. So sorry for those of you who are looking forward to that. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, because I do have an hour of the history of gang history in California, and I think that at least that could be interesting. We'll see. I don't know. I'll ponder it for a little bit, and I'll decide what to do later. Because right now, I know that I'm not in the right state of mind to make the decision, because I am still upset with every single thing that happened at the station, and I have the problem that when I'm a little bit upset, I'm just, fuck it, let's just burn everything, and we'll deal with the consequences later. So, I guess cooler heads need to prevail, and I'll just make the decision later. But, yeah, bad news there. Sorry. Honestly, sorry. I talked about it, I was excited, I wanted to do it, but, looks like that project's done, and now I have to do something else, I guess. I mean, I had other ideas, but this is the one that I was excited about. But, I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, any comments, questions, suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram, or at SuperDarioPeroWorld. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.